Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naracheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tatojam Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So, welcome for this Bhagavatam class. Today is actually, we are starting with 6th chapter, a very wonderful chapter. So, it's a nice auspicious beginning today. Shri Guru Purnima is there. And we'll be starting with the 6th chapter. So, this particular chapter is named as the Purusha Shukta confirmed. And this Purusha Shukta, they are the most popular prayers in the Rig Veda. And Rig Veda is the most popular amongst even the 4 Vedas. So the problem in this Purusha Shukta is it does not explain in the Purusha Shukta who that Purusha is. Give me 1 minute, I will just close this. Who that, Purusha Shukta is actually, Purusha is, or, and who that Purusha actually is being glorified also. So, they are not giving this particular, okay, these are some prayers and who is being glorified, which Purusha is being glorified in those prayers. So, and if you can explain that the message of the Shruti and Smriti, they are the same. Then in one sense, you have opened the doors for everyone to access the Smritis. Otherwise, based on the impersonalist school, the Shrutis would always have an inferior state. And people would always look up to the Shrutis to understand the philosophy. But the Smriti is very directly and easy and accessible for everyone. So the Vaishnavas, Acharya, had to do this additional work of establishing that the message of the Shrutis and the Smritis are actually the same. So Srila Jiva Goswami, he says in his Tattva Sandarbha, there are 6 Sandarbhas, and one of the first Sandarbha is actually Tattva Sandarbha. Then you have the Paramatma Sandarbha and the Priti Sandarbha and the Bhagwan Sandarbha and the Prema Sandarbha and all these Sandarbhas you have. So these Tattva Sandarbha has very extensively addressed this issue, and he very systematically establishes that the message of the Shrutis and the Smritis is the same. He says that Purana does not mean that which is very ancient. यानी पुराना जिसको बोलते हैं ना, then a very ancient. So he says that Purana means that which makes something complete. Purna. So he says that if you have a gold chain with multiple links, and if one of the link is missing, he says that what can you tell about that missing link? So he says that Purna means that which makes the whole gamut of Vedic text complete. Who is saying this? Shri Jiva Goswami is saying this. And therefore, the nature or this goal of that Purna must also be the same as the goal of the Vedic text. So now, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam's this Purusha Shukta starts with describing who that Purusha is. So now in the 5th chapter of this particular canto, Narad Muni was asking 6 questions, if you'll remember, in the 5th chapter to Brahma. The first question were answered in the 5th chapter. And the next 3 questions will be answered in this 6th chapter. So, yat samstham means into whom the universe gets absorbed at the time of dissolution. Who is the supermost controller in this whole universe? Universal manifestation. Yat cha. So the last, if you see the 5th chapter, 2nd shloka. So the last question he's asking is yat cha. So what is it composed of? What are the ingredients? And this is what he's going to actually ask. And then he's saying that Yat samstham means unto whom this universe gets absorbed at the time of dissolution. And what are the material ingredients of this universe? And even the primary creation is now further divided into 2 parts. One is Karna Shrishti that we saw, and one is Karya Shrishti. So in Karya Shrishti, we saw how this Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters into the universe and gives it life. How he enters into the dead universe which was lying in Karan Ocean for thousands of years. He was not functioning. The universe was not functioning, which was lying in the Karna Ocean. And then Garbhodaksha Vishnu, he enters it and then gives life. So in this 5th chapter, when you saw this 35th verse, let me just open this 35th verse over here when I have to refer it when I talk. Yeah. So it says that Say eva Purusha means that very same Purusha. Who is that Purusha? Garbhodaksha Vishnu. He pierced this universe and then manifested this universe as it is seen now. What is the form of the universe? Sahasra Uru, Sahasra Angri, Sahasra Bahu, Sahasra Akshah, and thousands of heads, legs, thighs, arms, mouth, and head. So this is the very first verse of the Purusha Shukta prayers also. And let me just check with these Purusha Shukta prayers if they are there, and I can do a parallel of it. Somewhere in the Subodhini, we did have Purusha Shukta prayers compared. Give me 1 minute, dear devotees. Page 206. Yeah, we have the Purusha Shukta prayers actually. What should I do? Should I share it on the WhatsApp group or? Okay, give me 1 minute, dear devotees. I'll just share it on the WhatsApp group. I'm sorry, I did not do my homework today. I beg apologies. I did not do my homework today.
We are not doing on any day, Mataji. Hare Krishna Dandatam.
So I'm sharing this on the WhatsApp group also, and then we will take it from the WhatsApp group itself, Prabhu. Yeah. Somehow, okay, let's switch on the. Sometimes the net connection all of a sudden goes slow. I don't know why. So, anyways, I will still, keep on explaining while I'll just keep on doing certain changes. So then, if you see that when he's saying that he has 100 arms and and the first verse of the Purusha Shukta prayers, his size is not restricted to this universe. He's transcendental to this particular universe, and no, when he say that even though he's involved in creating, maintaining, and destroying it, but his functioning or justification does not control, is not just limited to this material world. So the purpose of the universal form is actually different from the purpose of the original universal form, which was described in chapter 1 of this particular canto. So, which was describing the object of meditation of this Virat Roop meditator. So, this is what. So, there are two types of yogis which we had described. I'll again describe in a little more detail about these two types of yogis. So, give me 1 minute. I'll just come up with that particular PDF. Yeah, I think we are very close to what I wanted. Yeah, I just share the screen. I'm finally. So again, this is from the Subodhini only I'm taking. So see, these are the Purusha Shukta pairs. Sahasra Shira Purusha, Sahasra Rakshaha, Sahasra Pataha. So that are the same. Sa eva Purushas Tasmad, Andam Nirbhitya, Nirgataha. So that these are all parallels which have been given by the Bhagavatam verse also. So this is the first verse of Purusha Shukta prayers. And there is a similar verse in our Bhagavatam also, which is the 35th text. Okay. So the Purusha pierced the universe and went outside. There he resides with 1,000 legs, feet, arms, eyes, and faces. So this is a similarity. This is what they are saying actually in this. So then we are talking about these two types of meditators, the yogis that were described. One is the Paramatma, form meditator or Paramatma Roop meditator, and one is the Virat Roop meditator. So now in the 6th chapter, the universal form is described, and the purpose of this description of this universal form is different. The purpose is to actually show how the Supreme Lord is the material cause of this universe. So there are three causes, as discussed. One is the Upadan Karan, that is the material cause. One is the effective cause or Nimitta Karan. And then the third is the instrumental cause or Sahakari Karan. So they've given the example as, there is a clay, there is given like there is a clay pot, and it acts as the upadan karan. Okay, so the potter shapes that clay into pots. So potter is the effective cause, right? Nimitta karan. Or the the wheel and the stick that is used to shape that particular pot is called the instrumental cause. किसी instrument के माध्यम से we are creating that. Or the sahakari karan. And the first selection from text 1 to 16 or 17 will answer one of those questions where in 5th chapter, 2nd shloka says that yat cha. What are the material ingredients of the universe? So we'll see text number 1. I'll be continuously sharing this also to give parallels also for this. Okay. We are on chapter number 6, Purusha Shukta prayers. We are almost halfway with the Bhagavatam, Canto 2. Let's see how much we can complete. Purusha Shukta confirmed. The text 1. Brahma Uvacha Vacha Vahanirmukham Kshetram Chandasam Saptadhatava Havya Kavyamritan Nanam Jivha Sarva Rasya Cha. So he's saying that Sushil Prabhu, please read the translation and purport both.
Hare Krishna Mataji, humble obeisances and heartfelt gratitude on the occasion of Guru Purnima.
Oh, thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. You all are equally my gurus because you all are also teaching me something. So, Guru to Guru.
No, Mataji, you are Guru. Translation: Lord Brahma said, the mouth of the Virat Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. His skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the Vedic hymns, and his tongue is the productive center of different foodstuffs and delicacies for offering to the demigods, the forefathers, and the general mass of people. Purport: the opulences of the universal form of the Lord are described herein. It is said that his mouth is the generating center of all kinds of voices, and his controlling deity is the fire demigod. And his skin and other 6 layers of bodily constructions are the representative generating center of the 7 kinds of Vedic hymns, like the Gayatri. Gayatri is the beginning of all Vedic mantras, and it is explained in the first volume of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Since the generating center are the different parts of universal form of Lord, and since the form of the Lord is transcendental to the material creation, it is to be understood that the voice, the tongue, the skin, etc. suggests that the Lord in his transcendental form is not without them. The material voice or the energy of taking in foodstuff is generated originally from the Lord. Such actions are but perverted reflection of the original reservoirs. The transcendental situation is not without spiritual variegatedness. In the spiritual world, all the perverted forms of the material variegatedness are fully represented in their original spiritual identity. The only difference is that material activities are contaminated by the 3 modes of material nature, whereas the potencies in the spiritual world are all pure because they are engaged in the unalloyed, transcendental, loving service of the Lord. In the spiritual world, the Lord is this sublime and enjoyer of everything, and the living entities there are all engaged in his transcendental loving service without any contamination of the modes of material nature. The activities in the spiritual world are without any of the difficulties of the material world, but there is no question of impersonal voidness on the spiritual platform as suggested by the impersonalists. Devotional service is defined in the Narada Pancharatra as follows. Hare Krishna. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat partana nirmalam rishikeshas Shavanam Bhakti Ruchyate. Originally, since all the senses are produced of the Lord's reservoir of senses, the sensual activities of the material world are to be purified by the process of devotional service, and thus the perfection of life can be attained simply by purifying the present position of our material activities. And the purifying, Hare Krishna. Process begins from the stage of being liberated from the conception of different designations. Every living entity is engaged in some sort of service, either for the self or for the family or for the society, country, etc. But unfortunately, all such services are rendered due to the material attachment. The attachment of the material affinity may be simply changed to the service of the Lord, and thus the treatment of being freed from material attachment begins automatically. The process of liberation is therefore easier through devotional service than by any other method. For in the Bhagavad-gītā 12.5, it is said that one is subjected to various kinds of tribulation if one is impersonally attached. Klesho adhikataras tesam abhyakta
Asakta
chetasam. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. So, so in this text one, if you see, there are actually two people. Two people are described here. One is the universal form, and the other is the personality who is called the Lord. So, we have to find out who that Lord is. So it cannot be the universal form. So two people are described. So one is the source and one is the effective cause. So actually the theme for, if you see the shloka, is that Lord is both the material and the effective cause of this universe. And that is why he is giving Shabda Praman. Lord Brahma is giving Shabda Praman. But later on he will give even Pratyaksha Praman also. So so one is the effective cause, and these two personalities, one is Virat Rup Purusha, Virat Purusha, and who is that Lord that is being described here? That Lord is actually Garbhodakshay Vishnu, who is being described over here. So this whole description is going to describe that how Garbhodakshay Vishnu is the material cause of this universe. So in two sutras, we can understand the first 16 verses of this chapter. Will say that for now, how he will give Shabda Praman, that Garbhodaksha Vishnu is the cause of the material creation, and later he will give even Pratyaksha Praman also. So, when we say Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it came from Srila Vyasadev's consciousness, and actually not from his words. And many scriptures, if you like, even if you see Ramayana is called Upa Brahmanaya. Upa means that which brings us close to Krishna or closer to God. That way. So in this particular is saying that the Supreme Lord has a gross organ and a subtle organ, like the living entity. And when we distinguish between the matter and spirit, that matter which is opposite of spirit, it is homogeneous. No, we have gross elements also, like we have earth, water, fire, air, ether also. Then we have subtle components also, like mind, intelligence, false ego. So if they are a reflection of the spiritual world, then the spiritual counterpart also must also have been have these elements also. Like, so just like matter is not homogeneous, matter, it is differentiated with gross components. So subtle components, similarly, even this spirit is also not homogeneously spirit. So spirit can also have subtle components and gross components, but both are spiritual, means the matter manifesting of the spiritual counterparts. Example, like if you see Agni or fire, it's there in the spiritual world. But but the nature of Agni in the material world is Jada. But the nature of Agni in the spiritual world is that it is actually Chitta Vastu. So Chitta Vastu means it has consciousness. So even the, even the stones and pebbles of Vrindavan, during summer, it gives cooling effect. Therefore, they know Krishna is going to walk on it. And in the winter, they become warm. So, Krishna can get that warmth. So, they are not Jad Vastu. They are Chitta Vastu. So, to explain this very, very simple way, over here, everything is Jad or everything is dead matter. Like if I say this mouse or my water cup or my mobile stand that is there. Okay, this is all, this does not have consciousness, this does not have Chetana. So over here, these don't have consciousness, but over there it has consciousness. Like the bed of Krishna has consciousness, the dhoti of Krishna has consciousness, the water glass of Krishna has consciousness, the flute of Krishna has consciousness, the turban of Krishna has consciousness, or any paraphernalia you take, everything has consciousness. So even the dust of the spiritual world, that also has consciousness. The trees, the flowers. So for example, Krishna is passing by a particular tree, that tree will emanate so much of fragrance that that fragrance will be, smelled almost 2 kilometers away from wherever Krishna is actually coming. That if that tree knows that Krishna is going to bypass. So to satisfy Krishna's senses, that tree will actually, give 100% output, what it should be. So even these stones and pebbles, in the winters they are warm and in the summers they are cool. यहाँ पे ऐसे होगा क्या? नहीं होगा. Like, so there is Agni in the spiritual world also, but Agni is not Jad Vastu. It is like, Chitta Vastu. But its material counterpart that is there takes the role of a Chitta, a Sat, and Nirananda. So whereas the spiritual counterpart is Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So spirit means not homogeneously spirit there, can be, variety also over there. And that is the source of, material variety. Nothing can be in the reflection if it is not there in the source. And if you see even in the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, the definition of pure devotional service is what? Anya Abhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karvanamritam Anukulyana Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Ruchyate. So, in that Anukulya means without any hostility or without any malice. It can either mean, with a favorable intention or without any malice also. So Jiva Goswami, in describing this definition in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, he says that if Anushilaman is not there, it is not a perfect definition. So one may argue that, if I have a favorable attitude towards someone, naturally that would mature in the form of some service. If I like someone, I would like to serve him or her. If I don't serve him, then that attitude of favorableness is only a superficial thing. There is no actual favorable attitude. So, in this whole definition of pure devotional service, Why should there be this anushilanam? So, favorable attitude, if it is actually favorable, is naturally mature in the form of service. So, he says that no, not necessarily. Because anukulyena also means without malice. A stone or a pot has no malice towards the Supreme Lord, but it is not performing any favorable service because it is jad vastu. But the same example we cannot, be given about pots and stones in the spiritual world. They are not jad vastu, they are chitta vastu, they have consciousness. So they are anukulyena, they are favorable, and they do Krishna Anushilam, जैसा कृष्ण कहते हैं, just as Krishna. So, because they are not Jad Vastu, they are Chitta Vastu. So, even Garbhodaksha Vishnu has gross senses and subtle senses, but there are manifestations in the material world, either in the universal form or in the living entities. That is, a manifestation in this material world only. So, Krishna's way of dealing with the nature is very, very different. It's totally, uh, out of our reach of our material senses. So, let's see the next. Oh, we've spent a lot of time with uh, text number 1. Okay. सर्वसूनां च वायोश्च तन्नासे परमायणे अश्विनोरोसादीनां च घ्राणो मोद प्रमोदयोः. So he's saying that his two nostrils are the generating centers of our breathing, and all of the airs, his smelling powers generate the Ashwini Kumaras, demigods, and all kinds of medicinal herbs, and his breathing energies produce different kinds of fragrance. Imagine the Lord is breathing and he is producing different kinds of fragrance. This the what the power the Supreme Lord has. And so when he's saying over here this nase, so it is gross instrument actually over here, the nose, which is a gross instrument. Okay. So actually it is a sense object only. And then he's using this word, grahanaha, his smelling power. So again, this sense of smell also is there. So all these gross instruments, subtle organs are actually two different. And we can see that way, like water is hot and water is not hot also. And when we say na asunam cha vayo of air, so who is the prime deity or the main deity of pranavayu is actually Lord Hanuman. Okay, so let's see the next. रूपानां तेजसा चक्षु दीर्घः सूर्यस्य चाक्षणी कर्णो दिशा च तीर्थानां श्रोत्रमाकाशशब्दयोः. Lakshmana Prabhu, are you there? Please read the translation and purport both.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Mataji.
Dhanapranam Prabhuji.
Translation. His eyes are the generating centers for all kinds of forms, and they glitter and illuminate. His eyeballs are like the sun and the heavenly planets. His ears hear from all sides and are receptacles for all the Vedas. And his sense of hearing is the generating center of the sky and of all kinds of sound. Purport. The word Tirthanam is sometimes interpreted to mean the places of pilgrimage. But Srila Jiva Goswami says that it means the reception of the Vedic transcendental knowledge. The propounders of the Vedic knowledge are also known as the Tirthas. Thank you.
So this is the fourth shlok. Tadgatram vastu saranam saubhagyasya cha bhajanam tvagasya sparsha vayoscha sarvamedasya chaivahi. Priyanka, please read this translation and purport both.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Translation. His bodily surface is the breeding ground for the active principles of everything and for all kinds of auspicious opportunities. His skin, like the moving air, is the generating center for all kinds of touch and is the place for performing all kinds of sacrifice. Purport. The air is the moving agent of all the planets, and as such, the generating centers for promotion to the deserving planets. The sacrifices are his bodily surface and are naturally the origin of all auspicious opportunities. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So actually, when you say, this twak, when we say, over here, that is skin. Okay. So from skin came, sparsha, touch. Okay, that way. And then of the moving airs also. From the skin came the moving airs also, that way. So let's see the next. Romanyu ubhija jatinam yovarya yagnastu sambhrutah kesha shamakshuruna khanyasya shilaloha bhravidyutaham. Vignesh Prabhu, please read the translation and purport both.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dana Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam. The hairs on his body are the cause of all vegetation, particularly of those trees which are required as ingredients for sacrifice. The hairs on his head and face are reservoirs for the clouds, and his nails are the breeding ground of electricity, stones, and iron ores. Purport. The polished nails of the Lord generate electricity, and the clouds rest on the hairs of his head. One can therefore collect all sorts of necessities of life from the person of the Lord, and therefore the Vedas affirm that everything that is produced is caused by the Lord. The Lord is the supreme cause of all causes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Yeah. The Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes. Yeah. Bahavo lokapalanam prayascha shema karmananam. There's only 2-line shloka in this. So Krishna wants to emphasize. Anu Prabhu, please read the translation and purport both.
Translation. The Lord's arms are the productive fields for the great demigods and other leaders of the living entities who protect the general mass. Purport. This important verse of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is corroborated and nicely explained in the Bhagavad-gītā 10.41-42 as follows. Yad yad vibhuti mat satvam Śrīmad urjitam iva va tatar iva va gachatvam mama teja sa sambhavam atava bahone tana kim janatina tavarjana vishta vyaham idam Kṛṣṇam ikam sinastito jagat. There are many powerful kings, leaders, learned scholars, scientists, artists, engineers, inventors, excavators, archaeologists, industrialists, politicians, economists, business magnates, and many more powerful deities or demigods like Brahma, Shiva, Indra, Chandra, Surya, Varun, and Marut, who are all protecting the interests of the universal affairs of maintenance in different positions, and all of them are different powerful parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, Śrī Krishna, is the father of all living entities who are placed in different high and low positions according to the desires or aspirations. Some of them are particularly mentioned above, are specifically endowed with powers by the will of the Lord. A sane person must know for certain that a living being, however powerful he may be, is neither absolute nor independent. All living beings must accept the origin of their specific power as mentioned in this verse. and is act accordingly, then simply by discharging the respective occupational duties, they can achieve the highest perfection of life, namely eternal life, complete knowledge, and inexhaustible blessings. As long as the powerful men of the world do not accept the origin of these respective powers, namely the personality of Godhead, the actions of Maya illusion will continue to act. The actions of Maya are such that a powerful person misled by the illusory material energy wrongly accepts himself as all in all and does not develop God consciousness. As such, the false sense of egoism, namely myself and mine, have become overly prominent in the world, and there is a hard struggle for existence in the human society. The intelligent class of men, therefore, must admit the Lord as the ultimate source of all energies, and thus pay tribute to the Lord for his good blessings. Simply by accepting the Lord as the supreme proprietor of everything, since he is actually so, one can achieve the highest perfection of life. Whatever a person may be in the estimation of the social order of things, if a person tries to reciprocate a feeling of love towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is satisfied with the blessings of the Lord, he will at once feel the highest peace of mind for which he is hankering life after life. Peace of mind, or in other words, the healthy state of mind, can be achieved only when the mind is situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The parts and parcels of the Lord are endowed with specific powers for rendering service unto the Lord, just as a big business magnat's sons are empowered with specific powers of administration. The obedient son of the father never goes against the will of the father, and therefore passes life very peacefully in concurrence with the head of the family, the father. Similarly, the Lord being the Father, all living beings should fully and satisfactorily discharge the duty and will of the Father as faithful sons. This very mentality will at once bring peace and prosperity to human society.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Ahead he says, Vikramo bhurbhuvasvascha kshemasya sharanasya cha sarvakama varasyapi haraneshcharan aspadam. Vrinda, please read this seventh translation and purport both.
Translation. Thus, the forward steps of the Lord are the shelter for the upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for all that we need. His lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds of fear. Purport. For absolute protection from all sorts of fear, as well as for all our needs of life, we must take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, not only in this planet, but also in the upper, lower, and heavenly planets. This absolute dependence on the lotus feet of the Lord is called pure devotional service, and it is directly hinted at within this passage. No one should have any kind of doubt in this matter, nor should one be inclined to seek the help of any other demigods, because all of them are dependent only on him. Everyone except the Lord himself is dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Even the all pervading Supersoul is also dependent on the supreme aspect of Bhagwan, the personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. अपावीरस्य सर्गस्य पूजनस्य प्रजापते पुंसां शिश्र उपस्थस्थो प्रजात्यानंद निवृते. Rajesh Prabhu, please, sorry, what is the name? Vishal Prabhu, I think, sorry.
Yeah, sure. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah, Vishal Prabhu, sorry. Please read the translation and purport.
Translation. From the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rains, and the procreators. His genitals are the cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting. Purport. The genitals and the pleasure of begetting counteract the distress of family encumbrances. One would cease to generate altogether if there were not, by the grace of the Lord, a coating of pleasure-giving substance on the surface of the generative organs. This substance gives a pleasure so intense that it counteracts fully the distress of family encumbrances. A person is so captivated by this pleasure-giving substance that he is not satisfied by begetting a single child, but increases the number of children with great risk in regard to maintaining them, simply for this pleasure-giving substance. This pleasure-giving substance is not false, however, because it originates from the transcendental body of the Lord. In other words, the pleasure-giving substance is a reality, but it has taken on an aspect of pervertedness on account of material contamination. In the material world, sex life is the cause of many distresses on account of material contact. Therefore, the sex life in the material world should not be encouraged beyond the necessity. There is necessity for generating progeny even in the material world, but such generation of children must be carried out with full, Mataji, responsibility for spiritual values. The spiritual values of life can be realized in the human form of material existence, and the human being must adopt family planning with reference to the context of spiritual values and not otherwise. The degraded form of family restriction by use of contraceptives, etc., is the grossest type of material contamination. Materialists who use these devices want to fully utilize the pleasure potency of the coating on the genitals by artificial means without knowing spiritual importance. And without knowledge of spiritual values, the less intelligent man tries to utilize only the material sense pleasure of the genitals.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, all these actually are centers for inauspiciousness, irreligious activities on the Virat Purusha. पायुर्यमस्य मित्रस्य परिमोक्षस्य नारद हिंसा हिंसाया निरस्यस्य गुद स्मृत. O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death. Mitra, and the evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, and hell, etc. So here he says that Parabhuter adharmasya tamas chapi paschima nadyo nadandina cha gotra namam sthita samhitam. Vaishnavi, please read translation and purport both.
हरे कृष्ण माता जी, दंडवत प्रणाम.
हरे कृष्णा. वॉल्यूम थोड़ा लो है, जरा हाई कर दीजिए.
यस माता जी. Translation: The back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. Purport: In order to defy the impersonal conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a systematic analysis of the physiological and anatomical constitution of his transcendental body is given here. It is clear from the available description of the body of the Lord, his universal form, that the form of the Lord is distinct from the forms of ordinary mundane conception. In any case, he is never a formless void. Ignorance is the back of the Lord, and therefore the ignorance of the less intelligent class of men is also not separate from his bodily conception. Since his body is the complete whole of everything that be, one cannot assert that he is impersonal only. On the contrary, the perfect description of the Lord holds that he is both impersonal and personal simultaneously. The personality of Godhead is the original feature of the Lord, and his impersonal emanation is but the reflection of his transcendental body. Those who are fortunate enough to have a view of the Lord from the front can realize his personal feature, whereas those who are frustrated and are thus kept on the ignorant side of the Lord, or in other words, those who have the view of the Lord from the back realize him in his impersonal feature. Thank you, Mataji. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Next he says, Avyakta sindunam bhutanam nindanasya cha udaram vaditam pumso hridayam manasa padam. Anuprabhu, please read the translation and purport both.
Translation: The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of living beings. Thus, it is known by the intelligent class of men. Purport: In the Bhagavad-gītā 8.17 to 18, it is stated that according to human calculations, one day of Brahma is equal to 1,000 ages of 4 millenniums, which is 4.3 million years each. And the same period is calculated to be his night also. A Brahma lives for 100 such years and then dies. A Brahma, who is generally a great devotee of the Lord, attains liberation after such a downfall. The universe, called the Brahmanda, or the round football-like domain controlled by a Brahma, is thus annihilated, and thus the inhabitants of a particular planet or of the whole universe are also annihilated. Avyakta, mentioned here in this verse, means the night of Brahma, when partial annihilation takes place, and the living entities of that particular Brahman, up to the planets of Brahmaloka, along with the big oceans, etc., all repose in the belly of the Virat Purush. At the end of a Brahma's night, the creation again takes place, and the living entities reserved within the belly of the Lord are let loose to play their respective parts as if awakened from a deep slumber. Since the living entities are never destroyed, the annihilation of the material world does not annihilate the existence of the living entities. But until liberation is attained, one has to accept one material body after another, again and again. The human life is meant for making a solution to this repeated change of bodies, and thereby attaining a place in the spiritual sky, where everything is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. In other words, the subtle forms of the living entities take place in the heart of the Supreme Being, and such forms take tangible shape at the time of creation.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. So ahead he says, Dharmasya mama tubhyam cha kumaranam bhavasya cha vignan yasya cha sattvasya parasyatma parayanam. Also, the consciousness of that great personality is the abode of religious principles, mine, yours, and those of the four bachelors, Sanak, Sanatan, Sanat Kumar, and Sanananda. That consciousness is also the abode of truth and transcendental knowledge. So, actually, the source of dharma, you can say. Oh, this is something nice. Aham bhavan bhavaschaive tame munayo grajaha surasura nara naga khaga mrugasari srupa gandharva pyassaros yaksha raksho bhuta gano raga pashva pitaram siddha vidyadharascha dharana drumaha अन्ये च विविधा जीवा जलस्थलन्न भौकसः गृहक्ष केतवस्तारा स्तारान् स्तडिन्तः स्तनयित्नवः सर्वपुरुष evedam bhuta bhavya bhavaccha yat tene damavrutam vishva vitisti maditi tishtati. Vrinda, please read the translation and purport both.
Translation. Beginning from me, Brahma, down to you, and Bhava, Shiva, all the great sages who were born before you, the demigods, the demons, the nagas, the human beings, the birds, the beasts, as well as the reptiles, etc., and all phenomenal manifestations of the universes, namely the planets, stars, asteroids, luminaries, lightning, thunder, and the inhabitants of the different planetary systems, namely the Gandharvas, Apsaras, Yaksas, Rakshas, Bhutagyanas, Uragas, Pashus, Pitas, Siddhas, Dharas, Charanas, and all other different varieties of living entities, including the birds, beasts, trees, and everything that be, are all covered by the universal form of the Lord at all times, namely past, present, and future, although he is transcendental to all of them, eternally existing in the form not exceeding 9 inches. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his partial representation, measuring not more than 9 inches as Supersoul, expands by his potency in the shape of the universal form, which includes everything manifested in different varieties of organic and inorganic materials. The manifested variety of the universe are therefore not different from the Lord, just as golden ornaments of different shapes and forms are not different from the original stock reserve of gold. In other words, the Lord is the Supreme Person who controls everything within the creation, and still he remains the supreme separate identity.
Just give me 1 minute. I'm just, yeah, distinct from
all manifested material creation. In the Bhagavad-gītā 9.4-5, he is therefore said to be Yogeshwara. Everything rests on the potency of the Lord Sri Krishna, and still the Lord is different from and transcendental to all such identities. In the Vedic Purusha Shukta of the Rig mantra, this is also confirmed. This philosophical truth of simultaneous oneness and difference was propounded by Lord Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, and it is known as Achintaya Bheda Bheda Tattva. Brahma, Narada, and all others are simultaneously one with the Lord and different from the Supreme Lord. We are all one with Him, just as the gold ornaments are one in quality with the stock gold, but the individual gold ornament is never equal in quantity with the stock gold. The stock gold is never exhausted, even if there are innumerable ornaments emanating from the stock, because the stock is Puranam, complete. Even if Puranam is deducted from the Puranam, still the Supreme Puranam remains the Supreme Purnam. This fact is inconceivable to our present imperfect senses. Lord Chaitanya therefore defined his theory of philosophy as Achintaya, inconceivable, and as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita as well as in the Bhagavatam, Lord Chaitanya theory of Achintaya Bheda Bheda Tattva is the perfect philosophy of the Absolute Truth. Hare Krishna.
So actually, the stock of gold is never exhausted, even if there are innumerable ornaments emanating from the stock, because the stock is Purnam. We have learned in our Ishopanishad, Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. So this is actually that it remains complete even if Purnam is deducted from the Purnam. Still, the Supreme Purnam remains the Purnam, complete. This fact is inconceivable to our perfect senses. Like, for example, if there is a pot of gold, if I empty that pot of gold, again that pot of gold automatically fills up with gold coins or gold that way, or with water, whatever. I mean, just an example. So that way. So So if you see now from text number 1 to 17, okay, we have just seen what is Yacha, okay, what is the universal composed of. And the Supreme Lord is the both the material and the effective cause of this universe. And material, so in material cause, what is happening? In the material cause, Garbhodaksha Vishnu's limbs provide the ingredients for the universe. So Garbhodaksha's limbs that are there. Okay, so how the Lord's limbs generate various ingredients of this universe is is given. That, for example, the Lord, from the Lord's jivha or the tongue, then there is taste, there is water. So of course Krishna says, I am the taste in water. Why does he say that? So for this reason he says so. And the Virat Roop description will time and again keep on coming. Like we saw in the second chapter also the Virat Roop. We saw here also the Virat Roop description. We'll see in the 10th chapter also the Virat Roop description. And if you see, both the descriptions are there. So, for example, the Lord's organs or the Lord's body is like an active principle, or the Lord's hair and beard are like the clouds, or the Lord's you can say bones are like the mountains, or veins are like great rivers and rivulets, or the Lord's place of evacuation is envy, misfortune, death, and hell. So these all descriptions, have been, some details has been given. And then in the next subsequent shlokas, he will say that, okay, Brahma, Shiva, and all other living entities, and whatever is existing in the past, present, and future, this everything is covered by this universal form of the Lord. Though the Lord although the Lord is transcendental to all of this, he is still extending beyond this universe by actually 10 fingers. So that's how the Lord also acts as the effective cause of the universe by energizing this universe both from inside also and from outside also. So he's giving energy to the inside part also and outside part. So what we'll be doing is tomorrow we'll see that how the material world. So when you say Ekapada, okay, and Tripada. So when we say Tripada means what? Tripada is actually the spiritual world, and Ekapada means 1/4. So the material world is 1/4 of that of the spiritual world. So imagine how vast the spiritual world is. So what we'll do is we'll just stop over here, and we will meet tomorrow for sure. So we've covered quite a bit today. 16 shlokas we've almost completed. So dear devotees, thank you so much for your wishes, Lakshmi and Prabhu, that yes, today is Guru Purnima. So thank you so much for your wishes. Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva means simultaneously one and different also. Hai bhi or nahi bhi hai. That way. I'll explain more on this Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva tomorrow. Okay. And I'll explain in more details.
Thank you, Mataji Dandapram. Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.